All right, let's get our geek on.
Bikini that she wore for the first time today.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast, the Husker Fan Sports Show.
Give the intro, Dave. You're on mute there.
That was so good, Honk. I apologize. Welcome to the Go Big Redcast. I'm your host, David Gaspers, and I'm with Honky.
Looking forward to taking a little vacation after this show here. So I can't wait to talk here with Dave and Adam, get our geek on, but then it's going to be a little bit of a summer break for me.
Also with Redcast Rob.
Well, I'm having a hard time focusing these days. The closer and closer we get to the season, I think we're like 70-something days away from
69,
kickoff.
Rob,
or
69.
69. See, I knew you'd say it, Dave.
That's our hard, Rob. Just count.
Gotcha.
Well, Honk, can you introduce our guests?
Absolutely. Our guests tonight, they bring the science and analytics into football. They are the co-founders of Matrix Analytical, the college football leader in off-field analytics, and a number one firm in staff building, roster management, and portal analytics. They help head coaches, athletic directors, agents, unit coaches, and players. You can find them on Twitter at CFB_professor and at CFB Matrix. Welcome to the Redcast, Adam McClintock and Dave Bartoo.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
Appreciate
for having us, man. Appreciate being on.
That's right. Before we get to talking all of our stuff here, we got to go through our housekeeping and our upcoming show here. We've got on Thursday is going to be Brendan Frankie, the NU kicker. So Rob, you'll be talking with him on June 23rd at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. As always, our hailvarsity.com/subscribe. Use Redcast for the promo code. Get $10 off your yearly subscription. Alumni Hall, we have 2 locations here in Lincoln, and you can see from the awesome Hawaiian shirt that Rob was wearing there that you can buy that kind of stuff. Go to alumnihall.com/Nebraska-Cornhuskers. Rob, do you want to do the FCS Edge one?
Yeah, if you're looking for a fantastic opportunity to work for a rapidly growing company that also enjoys the benefits earned with having a competitive, stable history of over 20 years, what is FCS Edge? They're a leading technology innovator serving governmental agencies, and they are expert services helping worldwide patent offices meet strict processing and publishing timelines while delivering exceptional quality. While working at FCS Edge, you can work with fun people with great attitudes, learn about patents. You're not on the phone. You're not customer facing, so you can dress in your Hawaiian shirts, Nebraska Hawaiian shirts preferably, every single day. And you can work in a new work environment with over $2 million in improvements. So their team is constantly growing, and they're always looking for new people to join in their mission. So check out available jobs today at www.jobs@fsc.com.
All right. And last but not least, Smack and Smooch, custom shirts and specialty items. You'll see us constantly wearing these shirts and the koozies and all that. Shane and Laura out there in Elwood, Nebraska, 308-325-2542. And you can check out their QR code here. So as we mentioned here, we have Dave and Adam, the Matrix Analytical guys. Welcome to the Redcast, guys. I gave a little bit of the intro for you, but I'll start with Dave and then, let Adam kind of get into it too. Tell us a little bit about what it is you guys do. Any stories you got, any fun stuff? I mean, I think that let's have a fun little chat.
Well, the first thing I guess is you guys have broken a streak, you bastards. This might be an interesting nugget for anybody listening, watching the show. Is if anybody's been following me and Adam for a while, and I know Adam's a diehard Husker fan at heart, And so he's been following Husker fans for a long time. But this is, and I don't know when Adam and I first got together to try to figure this out, maybe 7 years ago. This is the first time we have been face-to-face live.
First time.
We've never publicly met each other. This is the first Zoom call that we've been on, because normally when we're working with clients, we don't want Adam talking to clients.
No, I'm the numbers nerd. You hide me away from the actual people and you let me do my thing on spreadsheets. I'm good.
Yeah, we don't need. What do you mean you don't get it? Are you stupid?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's my bedside manner.
Yeah. But no, this is the first time that we've actually gotten together like this. But I think it's interesting though, because I think it speaks volumes about how important the numbers purely are for us. I mean, that's what we do. Is, whether we have worked for board of trustees helping hire athletic directors. We have worked with athletic directors helping to hire head coaches all over the country. In the last year, we've started working with head coaches. We have helped head coaches hire more guys for their staff than any other firm in the country combined. We help coaches, former ex-head coaches, find jobs with numbers. We help them sell themselves with numbers. So all of it comes down, though, to one thing, and that is telling stories with numbers. So whether we're talking about on the field or off the field, the first thing we have to have is a database, because the past tells the future stories. So that's in a nutshell, everything that we do for our clients. Then most of this, we have fun on Twitter, but we never really put anything out there that's worth anything other than having a little bit of fun there. Everything we do is simply telling a story with numbers, and our goal for all of our clients are the same. It's increase efficiencies, reduce risk. That's it. That's really all we do for college football, and they find us. We don't have a website. They find us. They find Adam. They find me. We've never reached out. Emails don't work. Letters don't work. None of that stuff. They all know each other, and they'll just find you. They'll just find, I'll tell you, I got tons of stories. Okay, so I'm going to be yapping about stories the whole time. So one of the first calls I ever got, this is even before Adam and I started talking, right? And it's about 8:30 in the morning, and I'm on spring break. And the whole idea of consulting really hadn't even crossed my mind until this phone call. And I'm walking across the bridge over the Columbia River because I was at my mom and dad's house. And so I left the basement and headed down the street. And where they're at, there's no reception for your phones down in a canyon. So you got to walk across this footbridge over the Columbia River to get to the store over on the Indian reservation to get more gin. And so it's about 8:30. So I got to the store, got the gin, got some limes, had plenty of tonic. And I start walking back across the bridge and my phone rings. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, Nashville number. Who the hell is this? And the one thing you learn with these coaches is you never know when they're going to call. And you never know what number they're going to call from. And I'm like, Nashville. Cool. Well, maybe it's Vanderbilt. Well, that kind of sucks, but we'll take it, right? Any port in a storm when you're trying to start something. Yeah. But it wasn't. It was director of operations at Penn State. And he was calling and asking about scheduling. And he's like, hey, we've been following you, and we think you have some really interesting perspectives on scheduling for us. This is coming out of Bill O'Brien trying to reestablish a brand, right? And I said, well, sure, I have a minute to talk to you. And he goes, cool. And he hits a button, and all of a sudden I'm on speaker in a room with all the coaches and the athletic director. Bang, just like that. Middle of the bridge, holding gins in one hand and limes in the other. At 8:30 in the morning on spring break. And I stood on that bridge with reception for like half hour, 20 minutes, half an hour, and talked about how I thought they should schedule to reestablish the brand, which was basically make it easy on yourself, right? Go 9-3, get in the top 25. Don't take a tough schedule, take an easy one, establish yourself, and use that to springboard recruiting. That was the first time I'd gotten a random phone call, and that was the first time I ever started thinking, something? What if we can use numbers off the field to help coaches more than everybody's focusing on the field? That's when it all started for me.
That was the first time I remember you calling me and saying that we had contact with an FBS staff. Was you called me and you were all excited, and I was like, what the hell happened? Because Dave gets excited, but this was another level of excitement from Dave, right? And he was like, Adam, you never guess who was just on the phone, who I was just on the phone with. And I was like, I don't know. Who reached out this time? He goes, James Franklin, the athletic director, wanted to talk about scheduling. And at that point, we're like, okay, we can do this. We can do this. We can make something of this.
Yeah,
So,
we never got a contract out of it. We didn't make a
No.
dime off of it, but it was
No.
damn cool.
yeah.
Well, and as you talk there, I think about, and we're not talking about specific coaches here. I know, Adam, you and I talked about that. We're not doing that, but like when a coach makes some changes, and Nebraska just had, some coaching changes on the offensive side, and when they're looking to make that, hey, we want to switch offenses, or we want this style of offensive line coach, we want this style of receiver coach. Do coaches come to you and like, is that database that you're talking about? Is it something where they're like, okay, well, these are the types of coaches that do this. These are the types of coaches that would be good to hire for this purpose. I mean, is that the kind of information they're looking for from you guys, like, to get pointed in the right direction if they're trying to make, very specific X's and O's schematic changes, things like that?
Well, we can sort it out that way and filter it out that way if they would like. Typically, what they do is Dave and I already have a list of offensive coordinators for about every level of program there is out there. We have that, in the back of our our brains to begin with. Then the head coach will come to us and say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. I want a more run heavy offensive coordinator. I want the offensive line coach to replicate that on his end with his unit. I want running backs who are physical. I want, and we can filter out our database to kind of accommodate that as they ask. But and at that point they would come to us with usually a list of what, Dave, 5-10 guys that they think are great, and then we can go through and tell them which ones aren't.
It's kind of a little push and pull. It's what do they want? What do we want? Because we can't ever have our way, right?
No.
We can't. If a head coach calls, if Tom Allen calls and says, "Hey, Walt Bell sucks," we go, "Yeah, we agree." We don't just say, "Well, here's our top 3 guys, go call them." It doesn't work that way, right? And usually what it will be along the lines is, okay, who are your top 10 guys that you've watched on film? Who do you like? Because they can give us their top 10 guys and we can go through and go, okay, we know what he wants for run pass ratio. We know what he wants scheme wise. We know what he's looking for. Then we can go, okay, here are the 10 guys that best match what he's looking for. Now we have a list of a head coach that's watched all the film. And we have a list by the numbers. So what we're looking for is we're looking for the lists that match guys, right? So if Tom Allen says, dude, I really love Adam, he's my number 1 guy, and the numbers have him at 23, we don't like him, right? He may have Adam off the list and he may be our number 1 guy. He'll never call Adam. I can promise you that, right? So, but maybe Adam's number 3 and we have him number 7. Boom. We got a match. The numbers like it. The film likes it. So when you're dealing with coaches, it's not always a one-way. It's never a one-way street. It's figuring out how to communicate our side of what we do with their side of what they're used to do, so you can come together. Again, remember the whole goal about it is always increase efficiency, reduce risk. So we can increase efficiencies by looking at the last 600 offensive coordinators in college football in 5 minutes. Okay. Now we can reduce risk by taking their performance numbers and matching it with the guys that they like.
Exactly. And one thing that Dave and I always remind ourselves and emphasize to these coaching staffs is we're numbers guys. You're football guys. You guys have forgotten more football than Dave and I will ever know or gain in our lifetimes. We're not here to tell you. Yeah. Yeah. we're not here to tell you football. You guys know football. You do football. We'll tell you what the numbers say about what you think. And where we come together, that's where Dave's talking about, the efficiency and the risk management there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, where Husker fans and where Redcasters right now want to know, and this gets us into talking about next season. I think you posted this here, Adam. Yeah, you had some power rankings from May 26th. And you said power rankings should be viewed as how a team would fare versus the field at a neutral site. Teams ranked higher would be projected to beat those lower. And right now, if you look at Nebraska's schedule this next season, based off of these power rankings, I have a black dot with a frowny face and an L to show the teams that we play that are ranked above us. But there's 6 teams that are ranked below us on this ranking. And it doesn't matter if we won or lost to those teams last year. And if anyone that knows our record knows we lost to most of them. But just based solely off of this alone, without going any deeper, we're 6-3 before we start talking about the non-conference schedule. And that's where, hey, if you can go 2-1, lose to Oklahoma, but beat the 2 group of 5 teams, all of a sudden you're sitting at 8-4. And if we say that, if we predict 8-4, that, there's a certain amount of fans that'll come back, and Husker fans have been beaten down a little bit over the years, and they'll come back and go, what are you talking about? What are you smoking? But just based off of the numbers right there alone, the power ranking numbers, if I said 8-4, Adam, is that, am I out of line? Is that, no, that's right.
No, you're not out of line. That's I think the second most likely projected record I think I have. Yeah, there you go. There's a graphic. The most likely record I have is 7-5, just because of home and away, how that falls. But yeah, you're more like the way the schedule lines up and the roster talent and the coaching and all those things that play into it line up. You're more likely. You should be more likely to go 8-4 than 6-6 this year with this schedule. That should be more expected than going 6-6.
So Adam, what goes into your power rankings? What kind of data points, and how does that, I guess, compare, if compared to some of the other power rankings that are out there?
Well, my power rankings are really simple. All it is it's coaching staff efficiency, which we use from our database. It's returning production. What does the roster return, and with the whole influx of the transfer portal here, that's really taken on a whole life of its own, because you have to bring in guys' production from other programs, right? And that there's a little twist on that as well, because let's say a wide receiver is coming into a triple option offense and he had 800 yards receiving at his old program. That's going to matter almost nil in triple option offense. Okay, so you have to kind of use a sliding scale there on the importance of those production numbers based on the offense that player is coming into. So there's some returning production both on offensive and defensive sides. Roster talent's huge. Dave knows this. He projects games too, using even more simple model than I do. And roster talent's a huge part of this. So, and I know Husker fans are tired of hearing it, but they still have the most talented roster in the West. I mean, they have since they got in the Big Ten. It's almost an anomaly the way they've lost with the most talented roster. it's maddening from an analytics standpoint. But
so, Adam, how do you evaluate talent there? Is that purely on recruiting, or because it's tougher to put analytics on development? Probably to your point.
Well, it's not, because we look at, and Dave has looked more into this than I have. If you want to look at development, you look at schools who have taken guys who are 3-star, 4-star average and pumped out more draft picks than
the Iowas and Wisconsin
than expected. Yeah, and Dave has done a lot. And even Dave has even reached down into undrafted free agents and how many of those guys from each program have made rosters. So there is ways to measure development in programs. That doesn't really feed in much into my projection formula here that we're talking about, but there is a really quantitative way to look at that if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that we were talking about was with the power rankings was the wins and losses. And this is a tweet we had from Husk Guys a couple of weeks or so back. and it was Sports Illustrated did their power rankings, right? Well, this is,
Mhm.
and there's different power rankings all over the place, but here's theirs.
Sports
they have
Illustrated these days.
Nebraska, basically he's like second in the West, all season champs, and we play number 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10 based off of these power rankings, right? And I think right now, from a Husker standpoint, from a Husker fan standpoint, is that compared to a season ago where we played Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State, and we're replacing them with Michigan, Indiana, and Maryland, or not Maryland, Indiana and Rutgers, and then so just those three games alone. And then you're playing Oklahoma here at home instead of on the road. Just the schedule flip alone, whether we got better or not, and hopefully we did with 33 newcomers coming in and 16 or so transfer guys. Hopefully we're getting better with our on-field talent, but just the schedule alone, we're all hoping, I guess fingers are crossing, that would jump us at least into the bowl game and higher category. Dave, you got something?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to follow up on that a little bit, I guess, but maybe that could go forward to this year's bowl projection, I guess. So it sounds like this year's data is telling you somewhere between 6-6 and 8-4, most likely. You combine those three columns and you're near 50% essentially, right? So I was just wondering, the predictions in past years, like last year, where were you? Did you have Nebraska, or the last couple of years where? I mean, no criticism here because we've all underperformed. We all know Nebraska underperformed, and I think anybody's power rankings would probably put them, higher than what they were. But I'm just curious, like compared to say last year.
Yeah, last year I think my model had them going 5-7. The year before that, I think, was the COVID year, and it had them going, I think 4-4. I think it was, or it had them going 500 in the COVID year, and they ended up going 3-5. So it's been fairly close with Nebraska. Now last year, them going 3-9. I think a couple of those games, I think, as all Nebraska fans would probably agree, should have flipped to the win column. So I don't think 5-7 was too far off of last year's team. So it's been pretty nails with Nebraska the last few years.
Have there been other teams harder to predict?
Yeah, I mean, teams like, well, okay, for example, when Bill Snyder was at Kansas State, his teams were just a headache to predict. He was. I used to refer to him to Gandalf the Purple because he was a witch. Because there's no way he should have been able to eke out some of those records with the teams that he had put together. But every year he would come through and he would over perform my projections by 2 or 3 wins every year.
Wow,
every year. I mean, no matter what. So teams like that have a coach in place that is just that level, they break through the trends and the projections that, at least of my analytics model, and are typically, they're really, really hard to pin down.
Mm-hmm. Hey Dave, you're wearing an Iowa State hat. What's that from?
Oh, this is my Jimmy Lake hat. You want another story?
Go for it. It's time for a Dave story.
So this is Uncle Dave's going to tell a story. So gathering kids, can you say marijuana? No. So what?
This is a family show, sir.
I'm in Oregon, and one of you's in Colorado. So so. Anyways, this hat actually came by Trends. Now I knew that Now by our numbers, we knew Jimmy Lake made a terrible hire in Donovan as his offensive coordinator. Okay, so that was our first red flag. So we knew he couldn't hire well, and that's part of our equation when we're working with athletic directors. Side note is coaching. When you hire a head coach, there's 3 parts, right? There's his recruiting, his ability to hire, and game situation. Okay, so there's 3 big things. So with Jimmy, the hiring part, we knew early he was garbage because he hired Donovan, worst offensive coordinator in the Pac-12 before he even coached a game last year. All right. Then I found out the dude offered the defensive coordinator position at Washington to a defensive lineman in the NFL who'd never called plays before. Wow, that sucks. And the guy said no. So then Jimmy took over. So what happened is, after they lost to Montana last year, they scored the game-opening touchdown, never scored again at home against FCS Montana. Now, since 2000, there have been 4 Power 5 teams that have lost an FCS game that made a bowl. So somebody was popping off on Twitter, and I said, hey, I will bet you a duck hat, because I'm a Duck alum. I will bet you my duck hat against your Iowa State hat that Washington doesn't go to a bowl. This is my Jimmy Lake hat. So thank you, Jimmy Lake, who still doesn't have a job, but cashed a generational paycheck. So what the hell does he care?
Yeah. No.
So don't lose to an FCS team, or your season's pretty much shot.
Pretty much shot. Actually, would one of them that made the bowl game would have been Iowa, because that one year they lost to North Dakota State, and I'm sure they turned around and won 8 or so.
Iowa might be one of them. They're all good head coaches that bounce back though. Iowa could have been one of them. I know for sure Mike Leach did it. He lost an FCS game, and I think he ended up 8-4, 9-3. And then Mike Riley.
Who?
Mike Riley at Oregon State before the regression lost an FCS game and made a bowl. But the numbers said, look, when you get off to that bad of a start, it just means you're a really bad team for the most part, and you're not going to a bowl. So the numbers told a story, and efficiently, I got a hat with it.
Adam, is that why you're wearing an Oregon State hat? Is that for Mike Riley? Or?
No, that's not for Mike Riley. Not at all.
Yeah, we know a couple of those losses. I do, before we finish kind of with some of the projected record stuff, this was another graph that you sent, and this was just next year's games projected on a game-by-game status. So, and Dave, Redcast Dave, we've talked about this, like how important that is to get off to an early start. And, this would have us at 5-1, losing to Purdue. So now you're 5-2. You win the next 2, and you're 7-2, but then we'd lose the last 3, so 7-5. And as you said, Adam, that's the highest projected probability at 17.81%. Just, 0.06% edging out 8-4. So really, you have us by the numbers. We're 7-5 or 8-4 according to your what you guys have.
More importantly, I saw a 3.19% chance that they go 12-0. So I just want to be clear there that there is a chance. They're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, it's
okay.
It's a better chance than going 0-12, I guess. So.
Oh, dude, 0-12 is epic.
Yeah,
everybody loses oversight of the 0-12 is glorious. 12-0 is much easier than 0-12. You have a special level of crappy coaching to get to 0-12.
Washington.
That is right up the road. No, I got no problem talking trash to Washington about that. But you look at Adam's numbers on the projections. Look, Vegas has him at 7.5. That's right in the middle of what he's talking about, right? And there's a handful of games that, if you wanted to break it down real quick, even without power rankings, right? Just look at coaching and home field and talent. Okay. Your first game, Nebraska at Northwestern. That's got to be a W. You got more talent, you got better coaching, and Northwestern really hit the skids after they lost their defensive coordinator. It's 1-0, right? You got to win the FCS game. We're not even going to argue about that. If that goes the other way, then you already know my feelings on losing to FCS teams, right? Georgia Southern, but you got the better staff, you got better talent, you're at home. That's a W. Okay, Oklahoma, you should lose that football game. But isn't it cool to have Oklahoma at home with a head coach in his 4th week and an offensive coordinator that's in his 4th week and Ted Roof defense? That's pretty cool, right?
The leaky roof defense.
The leaky roof defense, right? So you look at those first 4, and I'm not calling Oklahoma a coin flip, but getting that early in the season is much better than getting it later. Yeah, so, I think you got better odds there.
Do you think that Nebraska's defense is better than Texas's defense last year? Like, do you think next? Because I'm asking that because Casey Thompson threw 6 touchdowns against Oklahoma last year, right? But Oklahoma scored more points, so they won, obviously. But when I look at that sort of thing, like, I wonder, because you've got a quarterback who understands. I know Oklahoma has a new coach and everything, but he also hates that school. So there is the hate factor that goes into it, which I'm sure aren't in your analytics.
Oh, there's a hate coefficient there, but we ignore it. We ignore it.
Yeah, I feel like you should add that into your analytics, the hate factor.
Right. No, but you look at now last year. Actually, Nebraska's defense, and Adam can back this up 100%, highly underappreciated, top 25 in scoring efficiency last year. It was really good. Even offensively, I think offensive scoring efficiency was 63rd.
Yeah, it was half point. It was midway point.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't dumpster fire. I mean, it wasn't setting any records, but it was just the special teams, dude. Come on.
Yeah,
they were so bad. Redcast Dave, do you happen to know what like our yards per point were last year? Or that's because I know that's a key stat that you like to focus on, showing efficiency. And
it's a Phil Still number. I don't actually know. I've not gotten the Phil Still magazine yet, but it might be out there.
Yeah, but overall, Nebraska's defense was very good last year. Texas was probably, Adam would also back this up. We thought that defense was going to be a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
That defense was 104th in scoring efficiency last year. The offense was 15th. Now, Steve Sarkisian still can't coach worth a damn, but we expected that Texas defense to be a lot better. I think it will be this year as well, but you're not playing them, so who cares, right? As long as they got Sark there, they should be underperforming the talent like he has everywhere he's been.
Well, the only reason I asked that is because I was saying, Nebraska's defense has to be better than Texas's defense was last year, meaning that if Casey Thompson can perform the way that he did against Texas last year, or against Oklahoma last year, I'm sorry, playing for Texas, then there's a good chance that we could beat them as well because our defense would be better. That's my logic. That's Rob logic, by the way. Hi, I'm Redcast Rob.
We're using Husker Rob transitive college football math logic, right?
Rob's trying to get us to 50.
I've got a board right here. I could draw it out for you and show you.
One of those where Alcorn State's the national champion by some random.
I would never, but I do have Nebraska going at least 15-0 this
year. Rob has us 15-0, and he just needs to find a way to get us there. So you got to beat Oklahoma. Right. That's one.
Just divide your own power rankings, Rob, and just put number one. It's easy.
Right, but and you got Indiana at home. Right, you got better talent, you got better coaching. Indiana has the worst offensive coordinator in the Big Ten by a country mile. So you score 17 points, win the football game. Rutgers, Schiano, it's up and down. That's a tough one, but you still have more talent. You got a better coaching staff, right? So we're at 5-1. Purdue, there's your coin flip game, right?
That's
if you're betting over, if you're betting over, you need that game. Right?
Look at the percentage chance of win here. 49.92%. If there's ever a toss-up, because you have toss-up games listed for 6 of these, but that one game in particular, that is almost as 50-50 as you can get, right, Adam?
Yeah, that one is, I think, and I didn't include that on this graphic because I'm not going to do that until before just before the season. But I think the actual point spread projection on that game was like 0.03 points. To Purdue. Wow. So it's a little the game should go to overtime. So it's what it's saying.
So now we're at what? 5.5 wins, right? We're gonna go coin flip there. Illinois, that's better than a coin flip. You got to avenge last year's. Look, I know Bielema is solid. The coaching staff's good, but Nebraska still has a better coaching staff. You're at home, you got better talent. You got to go to 6.5 wins right there. Minnesota, here's your trap game, right? Here's your absolute trap game because Minnesota's offense, the OC and the support staff, really good. The staff rankings are very close here. This is another 50-50 game. If you're betting over, you're also betting Nebraska to win this football game. So, add a half a win. Now we're at 6. What are we at? 1 to 5, 6. Now we're at 7. Right?
2,
we're at 7. Right? So you're at Michigan. Now, this is a great time to play Michigan, too. Look, they lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their defensive coordinator. They got a bad special teams coach. That's a good time to they're still going to be underdogs in that football game. But it's not nearly the team that it was last year. So, Rob, transitive math, stop going Michigan, kill the flag. They're going to kill us this year. No transitive math. Wisconsin and Iowa are two of the best coached teams in college football, period.
Yeah.
You know, whether you like it or not, their numbers are good. Okay. And really, you're looking for one win out of these last three. That's what you're looking for, right? I mean, you're looking, better than a half a win. So, I mean, that puts us right there between 7 and 8. So that's the simple, no power rankings at all. Just looking at coaching, looking at where the game is played, looking at the talent. We just walked through it. You can see where the make and break games are, but those first 6 games, those are all outside of Oklahoma, in my opinion. You just got to win those football games. Got to figure out a way to get that done.
Dave.
So, I mean, it's fun to see Nebraska break that down, and it's great for our listeners. I'm wondering from our Betcast listeners, I imagine you've done that for every single team in FBS. Is there any teams out there that you think there's a value with their season win total?
Dave. Or this one, yeah.
Can I tell you a cool story?
Why not?
I love betting on our clients, but I'm not going to tell you who they are. So there's this one team out there, though. They have the second best staff rating in their conference. Their win total projection you can bet on is 3. They have the second best. Now, obviously, none of these are locks because it's college
Kansas?
football. No,
I like Leopold, but keep going.
He's not going to tell you. Is it FBS or
true.
Power 5?
That's true.
It's G5. It's G5. Okay. So anybody betting? Oh, I'll give you another one. Just a second. Let me finish this one. All right. So anybody betting, consider taking FIU over 3 wins. They got the best offensive coordinator in that conference. They have the second best staff in that conference. Their schedule is a cakewalk. Plus, they were 1-11 last year. Teams got to bounce back from that, right? They had the 3rd worst turnover margin in college football last year. That always bounces, right? So they had bad luck. They had bad everything. So now I'm not saying that's a lock, but I really like that one in terms of kind of a dark horse one nobody talks about. I think that is really good value. Another game, though, betting wise, because we all love to talk about betting these games. I don't know what the line is right now. When it opened, it was Penn State -1 at Auburn. Penn State last year was a top 20 in scoring efficiency, total team scoring efficiency. Auburn has the 2nd worst staff in the SEC. Okay, they are bad.
They want to fire that staff. They would have.
Right. They are really bad. They have a bad OC. They got a bad DC. Nothing is good there right now. Penn State recruits better. Penn State has a better head coach, a better OC, a better DC, everything. And you're just go money line. Just take the points out of it. It's 1 point. So one of those early games, that is one of my absolute favorites. Leaning Penn State to win that game straight up.
Hey, let's take a break here for a second. Rob, do we have any questions or anything that's come in that you from Redcasters watching that we want to ask?
We have quite a few, actually. I mean, they started lighting up the board pretty much right as we did this. I mean, there are stuff like,
pick your favorite.
Nebraska. Let's see here. Here we go. Jim in Minnesota, a show favorite. From a Matrix standpoint, was Nebraska close last year, or were there precursors that say they are further away than we think?
Good question.
Well, I mean, like we laid out earlier, their defensive scoring efficiency was top 20. Their offensive scoring efficiency was in the top 65, so it wasn't a train wreck. The only thing that was missing was you had a crater of a special teams unit.
Yep.
I mean, and one of the things that Dave and I always talk about with these coaching staffs is you have to weaponize that part of the game. You can't give that to an analyst that has never done anything before, or give it to a guy who's focusing on 2 other position groups You can't put it in the background on the back burner and expect it to be any good, because coaches around the country, staffs around the country are starting to catch on. They're starting to actually put a coach responsible for that, whose job is to break that down and weaponize it. So if you're not doing it, you're going to miss out on all that hidden yardage. You're going to miss out on chances to break games wide open. Block punts, block kicks, that's as good as a turnover. I mean, it's sometimes it's better than a turnover because of the field position you gain and also the momentum gain you gain in those situations. So I would say they were as close as everybody had seen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, three games.
Three things. Three things about special teams, okay, that I want that I'm gonna talk about here real quick for the listeners. Two of them are Nebraska. One of them is a projection, okay. Nebraska with Bill Bush, rock solid, okay, solid, well above average. You're talking 3.5 star special teams coach. So we like that. Nebraska fan, we like that. We like seeing a guy in place that is doing that. Number one. Number two. Quietly, nobody's talking about this. I want to bring this up because this is really important and absolutely by design. Nobody noted, or did somebody notice that Nebraska went out and through the portal brought in two of the best kickers out of FCS? The second most important thing behind a returning starting quarterback is returning punter and kicker. It's worth a football game. A veteran punter and kicker combination returning is worth a football game. So is a returning quarterback. Okay. So special teams wise, I expect Nebraska to, I know last year was brutal. I expect them to win a game off of special teams. Okay. Not only because of Bill, but because of having the experience there. The third thing is this is going to be one of probably the top two teams in the country. It has one of the best coaching staff. It is top 3 recruiter. Their weakest link is their special teams coach, Parker Fleming at Ohio State. If Ohio State trips up, I'm calling it right now on this show. If they trip up, watch it be on special teams.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the last two teams on our schedule, Wisconsin and Iowa, and you said that those are top coaching staffs. They both have full-time special teams coordinators. And that is the route, I guess, the transition we have gone. On the Redcast, we have Boomer. He is our special teams coordinator on the show. So the Redcast dedicates a guy to special teams. But 2 years ago, to your point, Adam, we dedicated special teams to an analyst. Last year, it went up to a position coach. And then now this year, we have a dedicated guy, Bill Bush, doing it. We always, like I mentioned earlier, Dave likes the yards per point stat. There are these certain stats that are very indicative of winning football. And there's a book that I read with I heard Urban Meyer talking about it, and he read a book where he said that 9 out of 10 times if you block a punt in a game, you're going to win it. And he goes, at that point, he knew instantly that's why he wanted to, and this was early in his career, he wanted to take special teams so seriously. He's like, there aren't very many indicative stats like that where 9 out of 10 times anything happens. But he says, if you block a punt, you're going to win the game 9 out of 10 times. Now, Dave is shaking his head, and I don't know if he just doesn't like Urban Meyer.
Talk about pulling stuff out of your ass. Something like that. Now I got to look it up.
Well, look it up. It's Bruce Reed's dad wrote the book, I guess. I think he was like Montana State coach. So you can read it.
Problems. One, you're listening to Urban Meyer. Okay.
Hey, I'm not going to a bar with him. I'm just listening to him. The guy's won a couple games.
You have issues that you are going to need to resolve on your own. Actually, that reminds me, before I get to my other point, that reminds me of a bit of a story, though, about the story within a story. Okay. This is everybody's always talking about explosive plays, right? Boom, win the explosive plays, win the game. But when you look at it, if you win the explosive plays, you win like 71% of the games. But that's not the whole story. See, now, if you take all the explosive plays and cut it into non-scoring and scoring plays, if you win the non-scoring explosive plays, you only win 57% of the time.
Yeah, that's us.
Yep, that's us.
If you win the explosive scoring plays, you win 82% of the football games. Okay?
Yeah,
so
points are important.
Ben, this is it's not so important in the NFL, Okay, bend, don't break, because professionals, if you give it to them, they'll take advantage of it. In college, it's 18 to 22-year-olds. They're not as patient. So I don't really care having my team give up big plays that don't score, right? I mean, is it great? No, it still sucks, right? It's still 57%. But I would rather have the explosive scoring than the explosive non-scoring plays. And that's where we got to, like if he says 9 out of 10 or block punch, you win the football game. What are all the other circumstances? So,
score on those, field position gain, all that type of stuff.
That's you just brought up Nebraska football the last few years in a nutshell there. I mean, we would have explosive plays at times, but we've had red zone trouble scoring. I've brought up a number of times on this show. I don't care what the hell stat this falls under. We had a 100+ yard drive against Wisconsin and didn't score.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the hell that means, but if you put up over 100 yards on a possession with penalties and everything, you don't score, then it's a lot of yards with no points. And Dave, yards per point, that doesn't give you anything.
Good numbers.
That's not good numbers.
No, it's stop talking about yards. Seriously, anything related to yards is worthless. It is not a yards board. It's a scoreboard.
You want to get less yards, more points.
It doesn't. The yardage doesn't matter. The most important thing is efficiency. How many plays does it take you to score the football? That's it.
But that's what yards per point is too. That is all about efficiency. Is yards per point, not yards per play, not yards per point.
Because it takes into
how many
account
yards
all your
does it take you to score?
Scores, your pick sixes, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, your offense could never be on the field.
Team.
You can win the game if you have 7 pick sixes and your offense is never on the field, and you're still going to have a very good yards per point because of that. So that does matter, that yards, but only in that sense. Yards per point matter, not yards per play, not some of the yards per game too. I mean, we've won or we've had so many games where we've out-yarded teams by 100+ yards, or we've out-yarded teams by 300 yards and won by 4, and it's like, oh my God.
But back to Bill's question about what's better, right? What's to get excited about? So here's one I want to give Husker fans. All kidding aside, I love having fun with this stuff. But seriously, okay, the biggest change that was made for Nebraska in the offseason was the offensive side of the football, right? Sure. That was the biggest change. Okay, we brought in a new quarterback coach, new wide receiver coach. So we brought in Joseph, and you brought in Applewhite, and you brought in Raiola, and you brought in Whipple, okay? And this was a really solid effort made by the Nebraska staff and Coach Frost to upgrade this situation. So by our numbers, okay, to answer Jim's question about what's better, well, what changed was the offensive support staff. The offensive support staff ranking that Adam and I have for Nebraska going into this season, they are number 4 in the Big Ten, period. Only behind Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. They have the 4th best offensive support staff in the Big Ten right now. So what has changed to make me, if I'm a Nebraska fan, feel better? I believe there's been a good, solid, serious upgrade on the offensive side of the football.
Adam, is that what this graphic was that you were showing me? Is that just across the board?
That's across the board. That's offensive and defensive support staffs together. That's the entire support staff.
Okay. Can you kind of explain a little bit what this means and really and how it compares with the other conferences too?
Yeah, exactly. Like Dave was saying, they have the 6th ranked support staff. That's offensive and defensive total, support staff in the Big Ten Conference. And I know, people may balk at, 6th in the Big Ten. That's barely, better than half. But the Big Ten, when you compare its average support staff to those of the other Power 5 conferences, it's 5.7% better than the Pac-12. It's 3.1% better than the ACC. It's 2.4% better than the SEC, and just under 1% better than the average Big 12 support staff. So you're 6th in a league that is the best coached conference in the Power 5. That's that's saying something. That's something that's going in the right direction, because it wasn't 6th last year.
Yeah. So this is interesting in the sense that I really haven't
There's
followed. I haven't really followed the coaching staff analytics of this. This is a little bit different than you see with a lot of other analytics type focused, websites or whatnot. How do you take into account like the tenure of the staffs as well as the experience? Because I mean, like you have staffs out there with someone who's brand new who literally is 0 years of experience. So how does that factor in? And then you have someone who may have 20 years of experience. You have a lot more of a track record on that one, but it's how do you even rate someone with only one year of experience or 0 years of experience on staff?
Usually it takes about 3 years of experience to become a solid scorer is how we phrase it. After the third year, 4 through 40, they're usually stay about the same rating.
Oh, interesting. You are who you are.
You are who you are after about 4 years.
That's interesting.
So,
so like in Nebraska's case, Raiola is a new offensive line coach. You probably don't have a lot of data on him.
Now,
but everyone else has at least 4 years.
Exactly. Right.
Adam, it would be interesting. We had Tom Osborne on about a month ago, and he talked about the institutional knowledge of his staff that had been with him for 2 decades plus. Most of those guys. It would be interesting, or maybe you've already even done it, but to go back in history and try to do some kind of analytics on what that staff, the 1997 staff, would have been like with those guys that had that much experience and that much institutional knowledge together.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder. There's been times I've wanted to go back and try to do things like that, but it's just pulling all that together would be rough.
It's a lot there. I do want to show a tweet that you had, Adam, and this deals specifically with a couple of Husker coaches, new coaches to the staff, and this is from Matrix Analytical, so your guys' site there. And if you are planning on playing receiver of any type at the FBS level, tight end, slot, outside the hash, doesn't matter. One of the top 10 places to go to catch the ball at the FBS level is Husker Football Nation, with the tight end wide receiver coaching duo of Mickey Joseph and Coach Becton. Few do it better. And there's a photo of Chase over there with the Bengals, who came from LSU and was coached by Mickey Joseph. So, explain that one, I guess, a little bit, Adam. And we love hearing that, by the way. And that's an example of new coaches coming in that are adding to that support staff ranking.
Yeah, I mean, you have 2 guys there who are coaching their units at both the top 25 in the country clip there. Both of those coaches are top 25 in the country at their position coach. You don't see that very often within a staff and in a collective like tight ends with wide receivers with tight ends. Both those guys are what we would call elite. They're both 4-star or 4.5-star guys, and like the tweet said, if you want to go, if I had a kid and he was looking at being a receiver of some type at the next level, and Nebraska was in the list, I would kind of start nudging him towards that way because of those two. Those two have shown that they are excellent at what they do. They develop their guys and they get the most production out of them at a top 25 in the country clip.
That is interesting, Dave. I know we've talked about this on the Redcast before. Like, you just called those coaches 4 and 4.5-star coaches, and we've always said, sometimes everything gets talked about talent, and we don't always talk about the coaching talent. But like, you're kind of almost giving like a star ranking to coaches. I mean, which I think is an intriguing way of looking at it too. I mean, there are 4-star coaches out there. There are 2-star coaches out there. And
to do that, are you guys just simply taking the 130 teams in FBS and breaking that down into 5 quadrants essentially? Or, I mean, or is there a different way to actually assign those?
Dave, tell them how many coaches do we have in our database, Dave?
We have a report on every headset since 2010. I think we have 21,000 reports on coaches in our database.
Wow.
So it took us 7 years to put it together. So that's why we're extremely unique in the college football world with what we do.
And so it's like a wide receivers coach. You have certain data points specifically to Mickey Joseph, for example. You've been tracking that over his entire course of his career.
Exactly. When the ball goes in the air and Mickey Joseph, his wide receivers are on the field going to get it, what happens?
Right.
What happens? Is it good? Is it bad? Every single play that has happened in Mickey Joseph's career as a wide receiver coach, we have it.
And that way you're actually, that is recruiting, that's development, that's how those receivers are working within that system, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm going back to your intro here. The college football leader in off-field analytics and the #1 firm in staff building, roster management, portal analytics. We talk about roster management all the time. You guys help head coaches, athletic directors, agents, unit coaches, and players. So I'm guessing if you're helping players, are you helping them with the portal and how to where to go, where would be best? And you're helping agents. Obviously, you're trying to connect the right coach to the right staff and so on. I mean, I'm just kind of trying to get an idea of like how all the dots connect, I guess. I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of connectivity on the dots. But yeah, no, we work with some of the athletes, just like we work with coaches, trying to find the best spot for them. So we do a little bit of everything when it comes down to roster management, on all sides of the fence.
Rob, what do we got right now? Anything new, or do you want to go back to one of the questions that we didn't get to yet?
Well, yeah, I do have one. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff on here, and like okay, so I'm a big baseball fan, big Oakland A's fan, so they kind of like the whole Billy Bean, what are you calling it? The oh God, now it's on the camera.
Moneyball.
Moneyball. Thank you, God, man, it was just escaping me, and it's right on the tip of my tongue. But
big Oakland A's fan, guys.
Big Oakland A's fan. Moneyball.
There's a movie called Moneyball, Rob. Come on, man.
I'm actually in the movie, in one of the scenes. I'm in the background during one of the.
Sure you are.
I am. I could show you. But are you finding that more coaching staffs and programs are open to using your kind of analytics? So are you finding that there's kind of a shift to this in a lot of these programs?
From the mostly from the the new generation of coaches are usually more open to it. We've ran into a few coaches that are, set in their ways, and they they don't really want to listen to a whole lot of what the numbers have to say, and that's okay. They do it their way, and we've actually told coaches, hey, you're going to call us again in about 6 months here, and because your defensive coordinator is going to be just hemorrhaging points, and you're going to want to get rid of him, and it's happened. And that makes him really mad when that happens.
I bet. Oh, he ran off.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, we just lost Dave, but I actually want to add somebody. I'm going to add Abbie here, and this is a surprise for you, Adam. Since we
hey, Abbie, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
So Abbie has, I guess you can explain. You've done some stuff with Matrix Analytical and everything, and this was the first time that Adam and Dave had ever seen each other on an actual call. So what the hell? Let's throw a third person up there, and everyone can see face to face. How about that?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Redcast again, Abbie.
Thanks. Yeah, first time I've ever actually seen Adam and Dave together.
Yeah.
Surprise there. So I don't know if Dave just he mentioned he may have to trail off there, so I don't know if that was the case there or not, but we're kind of starting to wind down anyways on this. I guess, was there any other questions there, Rob, that you wanted to do, or Dave, did you have any questions that you had?
Abbie, you could ask the question that you had up here. I mean, I'll let you read it. How's that? You can read your own.
You're asking Abbie, you know the answer to these questions.
I know. I was really hoping Dave would be on so he could admit his dark secret about this. So, Adam, since you're the only one on here, do you find that you watch games differently now than you did before you guys started doing this kind of analytic work?
Oh, absolutely. It's hard not to. I mean, when you know the numbers behind a coaching staff, or you know how bad an offensive coordinator really is, and you're sitting there, and Brock Heward or one of the Heward brothers is up there telling you how great he is. You hit that mute button even faster than normal, because and then that offensive coordinator goes out and loses the game, and then you laugh. I mean, that's.
But do you find it is it more kind yourself getting frustrated with it because you almost kind of predict what might happen?
Yeah, it is a little frustrating. It really is, because you kind of see behind the curtain a little bit. And I think Dave would kind of echo that as well. It almost takes the fun out of it a little bit to some extent, because you're like, okay, this offensive coordinator has no shot against this defensive coordinator, and I don't care what happens, it's going to get ugly, and then it does, and you're like, okay, well, why did I spend 3 hours watching that?
So let's keep this Husker related then. And JB kind of said this too, is Whipple's playbook should be amazing. Can we ask you about like how you guys see Whipple's, offense operating in the Big Ten and kind of what, what will you be looking for? Will you be muting the guys talking about how amazing his plays are going to be, or do you guys actually see some, positive outcomes coming from him?
We have Whipple as he's a solid offensive coordinator, 3.5-star guy is where we have him. He's going to have to run the ball a little bit more than I think that he did at Pitt. We've done some studies in the Big Ten about how much you need to run the ball to win in the Big Ten. If you're throwing the ball, I think if you're throwing the ball more than 47% of the time, you're going to start to struggle to win. The only teams that have been able to win in the past throwing more than that has been the Purdue teams. Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's been about it. And you saw Ohio State last year, even with all the talent they had, when they got in a game where they had to run the ball and they couldn't run it. I mean, Michigan ends the streak.
So run the damn ball guy, which I fancy myself as. We should be happy to hear that any success that Whipple is going to have, you can't just take what they did at Pitt and just transfer it over to Lincoln and expect the exact same results.
No, not in the Big Ten. Because the Big Ten, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is well in a way the best coached league in Power 5. You're not going to be able to go out there and throw the ball, 60 times like you did at Pitt and win ball games against the Big Ten defenses. Well, they're a lot more disciplined. They're a lot more They just don't give things up like you saw consistently in the ACC against Pitt.
So I talked to Chancellor Brewington a couple of weeks ago, and he was mentioning a lot more 2 tight end sets as well, right? Mm-hmm. And you would think that would mean running the ball more too, because you're kind of adding that those extra guys along the line. So hoping that Whipple makes those adjustments, right? I mean, that's
And I think he could. When he was at Miami, there was a few years when he was at Miami and he had a good running back, and he did run the ball 52% of the time. So I think, and when he was at Pittsburgh as a quarterback's coach for Ben Roethlisberger, they didn't throw the ball 60 times at Pittsburgh when he was there. They ran the ball and they played defense. So he knows how to do it. I think Whipple is one of those offensive coordinators, though, who he's going to win with what he has. He is going to adjust to what he has, and he's going to make it work. And he's one of those guys who's seen so many defenses, in his career that there's a Kool-Aid again. I love it.
With every word you say, Adam, there's one more win that Rob's seen.
Yeah. I'm like, can they go 20-0 this year? Is that
possible? The greatest season ever.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They're gonna start playing pro teams at the end of the season just to
bring on the Bengals, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Rob, unless if there's any other questions, if not, Dave, I guess we could probably do the parting shots or whatever.
All right, Rob, what do you got?
Well, I would just like to say that I enjoyed this show. I for once, and Dave may not believe this, but I actually enjoyed just sitting here listening to what you guys had to say and not having to say a whole lot, because it's I do like the numbers. I also am one of those gut guys. It drives Dave crazy on our on our bet show, because I go with bets. But I will also say that I have a better overall record in betting using my gut than Dave has using the numbers. So that's really why it drives him crazy.
Maybe on the show, it's because we do our bets on Tuesdays, like before I could even do my work, right? I'll put my Saturday bets against yours any day. I do just fine.
Well, I guess we could do that sometime. You're 50 cents and all that. But so no, I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you guys coming on today. It was good to hear, and it I actually jumped up and made a jar of Kool-Aid during the show. Like, that's how good it was for me.
All right, Hunky, get us out of here.
Well, I mean, obviously, we'll end with Abbie and Adam. We'll let you guys have the last parting shot. But for me, I have a couple of them real quick. One of them here is that in-state basketball that basically we reached out to 11 in-state prospects in the first 24 hours after the 2024 contact period opened up. So that's a good sign, I think, that of Hoiberg, hearing some of the comments about in-state and making sure that we get some of those guys. So I think that's a good start there. It doesn't mean anyone's committing yet or anything, but it's a start. while we're talking about recruiting, Husker volleyball, congrats to Coach Cook. The rich keep getting richer. Skylar Pierce, the #1 prospect in the nation, according to one recruiting service in the 2024 class, has committed. She's a 6'2" outside hitter from Lenexa, Kansas. She committed 4 days after college coaches were allowed to start making recruiting phone calls to 2024 kids. So that's awesome. And last but not least, our good friend here, this has been a heck of a year. Big Game Boomer. You go back to June 17th, 2021. We were the most sensitive fan base from every Power 5 fan base. And by the way, Michigan had a lot of sensitive ones because you can see they have like 8 of them. But there we are in the top right. The Go Big Redcast. We are the most sensitive fan base from the Power 5. And then the best podcast, which just came out here on the 17th or 15th, a year later, the best podcast for every school, Nebraska, the Go Big Redcast there. And so we've come a long way. Thank you very much, Boomer. We do appreciate it. And honestly, I kind of reconnected on Twitter with Boomer last year when I went down to the game in Norman, and the Oklahoma fans were awesome. It was a great weekend. I mean, even with the loss, it was a lot of fun. And I would love nothing more. If Boomer's coming up to Lincoln, I would love to have a beer with him. I'd love to show some of that Nebraska hospitality back to him, and it'll be a lot of fun. That's going to be a great weekend. I cannot wait for September to come.
I just unmuted him on Twitter just for that.
I think he just unblocked me, so we're in the same boat. Huh?
Abbie, what do you got?
So I have 2. One, want to give a big congratulations shout out to our softball team for Rhonda getting an extension on her contract. Hopefully that breaks the extension curse. Can't wait to see what she does with this team. I think she's a great leader and a great coach, a great role model for all those women. So really excited to see that announcement. And 2, this is my fangirling that I think I've done every time I've talked to Dave and every time I've talked to Adam, but this was such a fun episode. And thank you so much, all of you, for embracing this nerdy analytic thing that's starting to happen and starting to happen in college football. As a nerd, as a stats nerd, I love it. And I love that it's being promoted now. So great job.
It's awesome.
All
Adam,
right,
take us out. Yep.
Oh, thank you, Abbie. First of all, that means a lot. Every nerd out there, I'll tell you what, we're just behind a spreadsheet. We just want somebody to notice it. But hey, like Abbie said, the softball coach extension, that's awesome. That also, I want to shout out to all the guys who performed at the camp this weekend. The camp that I think it was Hutch I can never say his Nash. Let's just say Nash.
But I always screwed it up too. I used to call him Hut Nashmacher or something. I was awful.
That's a tongue twister. Mm-hmm. So the camp that they put on for the kids up there, I think that's amazing. I remember going to that camp when I was a youngster, and I think that's awesome that they're bringing it back. I think Lance Brown's kids involved in that as well. Mm-hmm. That was something that I saw on Twitter over the weekend. I thought that was really, really something that was worthwhile to bring back.
Yeah, he and his family are actually really good people. I'll name drop here. Honky and I met his parents 2 years ago at the spring game. When we all came back, we were in the hotel, and his mom actually is a listener to the show. So Laura, if you're listening, shout out to you.
All right, guys, great stuff. A lot of fun today. We'll have to get Dave's parting shot some other time, I guess. But
it would have been epic.
He was a mic drop. That was like.
Let's call that a Go Big Redcast.
Go Big Red.
GBR.